You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Camuña here, and we are back with episode 54 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today?
Everything is going good overall, bro. I think the same thing as I talked about last week. It's rental cars going on. We actually got a request to get it re-rented out today by the same guy. So hopefully he want to keep it for like a month now. That'll be nice. So I don't have to worry about keep posting it back and getting it rented out all over. That's going good. But other than that, we offered on another house for my house hack. Probably not going to get it because they asked for highest and best again, but I'm already at my highest and best where I'm currently at. So I'll probably pass on that one because it's not as nice as the first one that I saw, and I'm not super moved on it, but I know the one that I want is coming. So before long, I'm going to have it, and I'll be good to go.
Mm-hmm. Life is good, man. I think we're closing on the flip next week, hopefully on Tuesday, and that one should be a pretty good flip, hopefully clear about $30,000 net profit on that one. And getting this other one, the guy contractor said it should be done in 2 weeks. I don't believe it, but we'll see. I'm not the project manager, so we'll see kind of what happens with that. And other than that, man, it's been a lot of grinding. I'm working on releasing a course here soon, hopefully for sometime in September. It'll be showing people how to get that first real estate deal, that first flip or rental property. And, got a house hacking course that'll be on the way as well. So been working heavily on those recently. And that's because I get a lot of these questions just on my other page, on my personal page, because I post the stuff on my story just in terms of like the real estate and all that stuff that's going on. So, I think this could provide a lot of value for people just in that regard. And so, I've been working diligently on that. It's a lot of work. I didn't know how much work that kind of stuff was because it's like literally every little, you got to think of like, even because stuff becomes so second nature, you got to remember that like a lot of people haven't done it. The people that you're, selling the course to haven't done it. So just being able to like go back and think about every little detail about, acquiring a deal and how all that kind of stuff happens. So, but yeah, a lot going into it. But I think that kind of really ties well into our guest today, and who we talked to today. It was a super fun episode. We talked to Deandra McDonald. She's a real estate investor in Virginia. And man, this was probably one of the funnest episodes we did. A ton of value in there, but it was super entertaining just in terms of like her personality. I didn't know she was an actor. Found that out. We didn't talk about it in the episode, but
Right.
apparently she's an actor. Now that really makes sense on, why she is as vibrant as she is. So we got to talk a lot about her journey from real estate investing and how she began from just like that $185,000 property that is now, grown into a 14-unit rental portfolio with commercial real estate and also multiple single residential properties. So it's one of those stories where it's like you see how, we talk about house hacking, of course, and how all these like certain principles that we preach and teach, what they lead to, things that's like big and things that most people will never even think about doing, like owning a apartment complex. How many people think of owning that? And she's done that all before the age of 30. I mean, I think she just turned 29, if I remember on her. Did she say she was 29?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, I felt the same exact way about it. Like we had plenty of laughs all throughout the episode, but there was so much value and so much content in here that I think people can take away from, because especially when it comes to like not being where you want to be, but not using it as an excuse for why you can't get to where you want to be. Like everything that she did in her story, she wasn't super knowledgeable on it when she first started, but she was willing to learn along the way and willing to take the risk for a much higher gain and much more reward later on. So whether it was through house hacking, whether it was buying that first multi-unit apartment, she was always willing to take action and not be afraid to fail, because she knows that as she goes through, she's always going to learn more along the way. And ultimately she's going to end up where she wants to be because she took action in the first place. So I loved her entire story, and I hope a lot of listeners get a lot of value out of her.
Well, let's get into it. Hey, Deandra, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing good, doing good. We're super excited to have you on here. I know this is going to be one of the better episodes. I can already tell with the energy that you bring in.
And
This going
they
to be.
say they're super excited, but they didn't tell me we were recording. So I got on here looking busted, and they were just like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. Like, I had to stop it. So y'all weren't that excited because y'all was going to let me sit up here in my t-shirt just being regular.
Hey, if people know the message is the most important thing.
Right, we're excited to have you on with your message.
But no, I'm excited too.
Yeah, okay. I mean, usually how we start every episode, we just kind of want to get into our guest background in terms of like, you know, how it was growing up in regards to money and finances and all of that kind of stuff. And so we can get like a good. I want people to really be able to relate to every guest and kind of see like, oh, we came from similar backgrounds, or oh, they was just like me, and you know, the story will be able to, you know, it'll resonate a lot more. Your journey will resonate a lot more. So could you kind of like get into that?
Yes. You know, little side note, I just called my mom like a week or two ago and was just like, yo, I am so sorry that I was so ungrateful as a kid. Not that I was like asking for a lot of things, but like, yo, being an adult is hard. And I'm surprised at how much you like actively shielded us from. And like, I thank you for that, because I grew up in a single parent household with a mom who I didn't learn until I was doing my FAFSA, made $40,000 a year in New York City. And how she finagled whatever she, you know, like, I was like, oh, tires cost money. And sometimes like you got to buy groceries cost, you just don't think about these things as a kid because she didn't make money important. I never felt like we were poor. I never felt like we never struggled. We never missed meals. But somehow she made $40,000 stretch, and to the point where my brother and I only went to private schools. Now these were tiny little private schools, right? But she somehow finagled to get a scholarship, so she would work at the school to get a discount. She just really made money work. So I kind of grew up with the mindset of like, you work and you put away some and you get to enjoy a little bit, right? Like I wore uniforms all my life, so like clothes weren't a thing, but we still try to go on like a vacation once a year, even if it was just to the beach for 2 days. Like she really made it like money's not important. We're not going to go into massive debt, but we're going to just work and do the little we can and love each other. So I went to college thinking kind of like, look, you take out some debt to go and it is what it is and you just go. And she also said it was cool, right? Because she took out $1,500 in debt and she was like, why can't you do the same? And I was like, the total you took out was $1,500. That's not even my books for this semester, ma'am. If you could just, but I took out all this debt to go to school and I really didn't question the path that was kind of set for me until I couldn't get a job. So I majored in chemistry, and you can't really do anything with a bachelor's in chemistry. You know, like you definitely need a master's or a medical degree or a veterinary degree. It was just like, this is crazy. I went to school, I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm struggling. And I'm working 6 jobs, and I can't be like, this can't be the life they want me to work, because this has been 6 months. And I don't know if you guys have debt, but when I graduated, you graduate in May, that first payment's not due to November. Mm-hmm. So I was already struggling prepayment. And when that first bill came, I was like, so I guess no food this week, I guess is the choice. Which made me have to switch of like, this can't be the 40 years of work they asking me to do before retirement. It wasn't even 40. At that point, it was like 43. I was like, oh, no. Which is when I started looking at real estate again of like, there has to be something other than this. I can't be set up to work 70 hours a week just for me. And I can't pay my bills.
So one thing I always hear, especially when you talk about somebody growing up with their personal finances who may have not had a lot of it being taught at home, you don't learn what your parents really make, because that's really not even a conversation that anybody has. And you don't learn until you're applying for your FAFSA. Now I've heard that so many times, and I'm like, yeah, so that's pretty much just a little snippet of how much personal finance was talked about for somebody growing up. So I just from that, I can tell like that was never really a topic of conversation, but your mom was always just willing to make it work. That's crazy, for one, that you live in New York City with 40,000, 2 kids, single parent. I can't even imagine. So I would just,
I know some people don't talk about personal finance because they think kids shouldn't have to deal with it. But I think she was doing it like, look, I'm struggling and I don't want that to be a part of your childhood. Like, I don't want that to tinge all your memories. Where I've seen some people just like, I just didn't think it was important. You're just going to go and be a doctor and it's whatever, like figure it out. But she was really just trying to make sure that all of a sudden she'd be like, we're going to start walking to school. You got to exercise more. And I was like, oh, it's because we need new tires. And I just like never even thought, damn, because you need tires.
But you know what? That's such an interesting conversation and such an interesting topic to have, because I think about that a lot now in terms of like how, wealthy people speak to their children and what they tell their children in terms of finances and personal, money and financial literacy. The conversations are a lot different. And it's not a coincidence that the fact that these people are wealthy and they talk about these things, and that middle class, poor people do not talk about these things, and they're middle class and poor, right? Because I'm a big believer in the fact, like I say all the time, we look back 400, 300, 200 years ago with, obviously slavery, 40 acres and a mule, all that kind of stuff that happened. The biggest thing that was never passed down was that financial literacy in terms of like each generation. Like you have the land, and with the land, if you don't get the land, the kids are not learning necessarily what you can do with this land, right? They don't know it can go up in value. They don't know you can take equity out in it, right? But if you have that land, which a lot of the white people did have at that time, that are even wealthy today because of that, that land that's still in the family or got transferred down, they're teaching these kids about this stuff, and they're telling them about this stuff and the importance of it. So that's huge. And I really want, there has to be a shift there, even in the mindset alone of middle class and poor people telling their kids about this stuff, even if you're not rich. So
yes, and if I can add, I think there are some people who might be telling their kids, but they're just telling from what they know. So I was told lessons, and the lesson was go to school and get a high-paying job like that. And that's not an incorrect lesson.
Right.
I think for some of us, we're being exposed of like, oh, that's not the only lesson I could do, because working the land is like, for sure, like it grows food and it puts money on the table and it does what it's supposed to. But like, there are other things we can do with this too. And that's where like y'all come in, right? Of exposing these people to like, there's other stuff for you. That's not just this job, whatever, even if it's high paying, even if it's secure, there are other options. If you still want to go back to that job, so be it. That's fine. Just know like there's something else, because we only get the one.
Yeah, and that's really our goal with this. We want to help people understand all those options. So then, whenever you kind of got into, you figure out you couldn't get a job with your chemistry degree, you started looking into real estate. What made you look into real estate as opposed to looking into other investment opportunities, or even? And what was it about real estate that intrigued you?
Because I had no money, Alex. I was broke, and so nobody wanted to invest with me. Nobody wanted to go into nothing with me. I went into the bank and they were like, you need 4 G's for a house. And I was like, I can do $4,000. And that still took 2 years. And I was like, but I could figure that out. But there was nothing else to invest in because I didn't have no money. Also, on the real tip, I didn't have much exposure. So like real estate, my family owned property, right? They owned the apartments they lived in. So that didn't feel so foreign, where like, I didn't know a truck driver, right? I didn't know truck drivers. So with that, I didn't know truck drivers could own their own trucks and do their own things, right? I thought they were just hired by like Amazon to move the stuff. I didn't know vending machines weren't necessarily owned by the business owner whose store was out in front. So I didn't know I could like buy a vending machine and do something. I didn't know about stocks really, or didn't feel like it was accessible, because I needed money now, not like value later. So real estate just felt like, okay, this seems like something I could do with what I have. I have a job, I have decent credit, and I can get some money. And that seemed like I could buy a house. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll start there.
And you said earlier that you had like 6 jobs at the time of coming out of college. So I don't know if you were boosting right there, or was that like a legit thing? Like you may have 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs.
Oh, no, I was, we can list, no cap. I was a lifeguard. I was a swim instructor. I was a bartender, had no bartending experience. So they'd be like, can I have a drink? And I'd be like, I guess I'm going to Google what that is, because I don't know. So lifeguard, swim instructor, bartender. I worked as a vet assistant. And then I worked as a tutor. So like I was just whatever. And so, money not consistent. You like tips one day, tutor money, this money deposit. This is every other week, but that's twice a month. And this is monthly, just trying to get money to put. And as I was applying for like salary jobs, but just
you were like old dude from what's his name, Terry Crews from Everybody Hates Chris. He had like...
That's right. and just upset anytime anything in the house. What you mean, you need more laundry detergent? No, you gotta put some water in there, shake it up. This is what we got to work with, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
It's like you were looking for jobs, and this is pretty much all you know at the time. It's like, if I want to make money, I need to find a job. So you're just trying to just find job after job after job, but none of them are really producing the income that you're looking for, like to start paying down the debt that you have and just trying to live the lifestyle that you want. And so you said that you found real estate, but like, were you even knowledgeable in real estate? Like, were you able to, like, when you first said, I'm gonna do real estate, how knowledgeable were you? And then if you weren't, how'd you start finding that knowledge?
No. So like I said, I had family members who had owned property before. So I understood like what a mortgage was, you know, like it's not quite rent, but not quite not rent either. You know, like you're paying for the opportunity to live there. And if you stop paying, somebody else will take the place. So unless you finish that loan payment, you're going to have something, have a payment to make every month. But I didn't know very much at all. Definitely didn't know how to maintain anything. All I kind of knew was I just got to get people to pay me more than what I'm paying. And really the original goal was I just want to pay less than what I'm paying.
Right.
So I was paying $750 for a 1-bedroom. And I was like, I just don't want to pay this much. So even if I could just lower my rent payment to my mortgage, that could save me $200. And that $200, I was making like $8 an hour at one of my jobs. That's 25 hours. Sir. Okay. We're not all engineers, sir. I'm going to need you to get yourself together. I appreciate
Excuse me. How do you just sit?
Sir. Alex, I'll talk to you. That's 25, but like in some real talk, that's 25 hours a week. That 25 hours over the course of the month that I would get my time back, even if I just lived alone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, if I can get a roommate, because I couldn't afford a duplex because I didn't have very much money. If I could get a roommate, then I could get even more hours back of my life. Because I was still thinking, even with the idea of getting a real estate income property, I'm still thinking in terms of my hours. I'm still thinking like, well, how much money do I make if I replace 800? That's 100 hours a month. That's a lot of time. And on a mortgage, because I mean, I look back now, because minimum wage hasn't changed. And so I never made minimum wage, barely over. But I'm like, how y'all people making minimum wage haven't just burned this whole America down. It's just outrageous, right? That you could work that much and come home with $1,000 and they're just like, make it work, you know? So.
But that first deal though, see, because you mentioned that you have to spend $4,000 for that first deal. What did that first deal look like?
Yeah, so my first property ever was a 2-bedroom house hack. I went to my realtor and I said, I can afford, well, first I went to the bank and I was like, I want to buy a house. And then she ran on my reports and she laughed. And I was like, my spirit, sir, ma'am, needs to be protected. She was like, you can't buy nothing. I was like, nothing. She's like, no, your credit is not good. Because this is before I started saving up, like your credit, because I was living on credit cards trying to make it. You don't have very high income because I didn't have a job or full time, and you don't have very much money. So she said, fix those things and then come back. So I finally got a job working as a lab tech. So I fixed the income. I didn't leave my lifeguarding job. So all that money just went to paying off my credit card debt, and that raised my credit score. And then I was able to save. So she said, you can apply, you qualify for $85,000. I was like, dope, that's a lot of money, right? I had never thought of it. So I go to my realtor and he was like, boop, 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 boop. There are 0 properties available for $85,000. And I was like, okay. I feel like Jesus has told me that I should have a property. So let's just keep looking. And he was like, what do you want? I was like, literally anything that has 2 bedrooms or more. I don't care if it's a multifamily. I don't care if it's a condo. I don't care if it's a townhouse. He could put me in a mobile home. I wouldn't have cared. As long as I could put an income paying roommate in there with me, 2 or more bedrooms, we're good. And one day a property came up that was listed for $85,000. It was the only one on the market. It was 2 bedrooms, 1 bath with a little den, which couldn't be a bedroom, but was extra space like storage. And it was a townhouse. It was half of a duplex. And we bought it.
I love that story though, because even from the beginning, a lot of people would have gave up right at that beginning point where it's like the bank told them you can't do it. But the difference is,
yeah, right. After they laughed, then they would have.
Yeah, and that would have killed a lot of people if they laugh at you. Oh my God! Well, this is definitely not for me. But the fact that the one thing you did was you asked why. It's like, okay, I can't do it. Well, why not? Well, you need to fix your credit. You need to fix your income. You need to, fix all this stuff. And it's like, okay, now I go fix those things. I know why. Let me just go fix those things and address those things. A lot of people don't even ask why. They just take the no, and then that's it. But that alone is like, that's the reason you are today, asking why when things don't go your way. Mm-hmm. So that's a really, really good point.
And you just connected something for me that I never made, because that same thing happened when I bought my first apartment building. Like I showed up because I had never gotten a commercial loan before, so I didn't know what that was. I just been house hacking, and I showed him, and he was like, "You don't have enough saved. We want to see 6 months reserves. You don't have this, and you don't have this." And I was like, "What if I get that? Will you loan?" And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "Okay." So I went out and flipped a property to get more money and learned what a business credit was and up that, and then came back and was like, "Okay, well, now I'm ready." He's like, "Okay." So that followed over later, like, oh, really?
That definitely reflects on your personality, then, because everything that, like every setback that you see in your way, you always try, first of all, figure out what's the issue. Then you start going to try to solve it. But then even if it doesn't get solved right away, you still don't like say forget about it and I'm just going to revert back to where I came from, because you very well, after you got pre-approved for that $85,000 and saw there was 0 listings for $85,000, you could have just said, well, I say it was $4,000, but there's nothing here for me. So this is some good party money for the next months.
That's right.
It very well could have went the other way, but because you were still thinking in the mindset saying, no, something's going to come up. I've already prepared myself for the opportunity to present itself. So once the opportunity presents itself, I can capitalize on it, which is what happened for you. So now you're able to take heed to that property that came up, and then I'm assuming that you're able to rent it out afterwards.
Yes, exactly. So I had that, since you guys are house hackers too, right? Had that 30-year low interest. Well, it was low until I learned what like this year's interest rates are, but 30-year low interest loan. I think the mortgage wound up being $530. And right now that unit rents for $1,400. So like totally worth.
Really?
Oh yeah. The spread is great. Like totally worth it.
What year was that?
That was 2015.
Wow, that's like a long time ago. So then okay, because you mentioned the apartment complex. What does your portfolio look like today? We want to get into.
I have all multifamilies at this point. I have a 10-unit building and then 2 duplexes.
14 doors in total?
Yeah, that I own. And then like I have Airbnbs that I rent and like this. So, but like under like my like owning rental portfolio would be 14 rental units.
Nice. And how old are you?
I am 29.
My
I'm
bad.
just caught off guard. You just like age.
I forgot. My fault.
How old are y'all?
24.
Oh, full babies. Beautiful.
No,
I guess.
Because
It's
I did.
that youthful glow. I could see when we got on, because again, y'all was gonna have me out here looking ratchet as the old lady. But I could feel it. Youth. Love it. Love to see it.
No, I mean the fact I want to get into Marlon. Did you want to comment on that? Because I want to get it really into like this whole
my age. Is that what you're
saying?
No,
I'm sorry.
No, because I know we have seen before that you were able to retire by age 28, and that's been one of our main goals that we were trying to achieve. Like that's literally the goal we set for ourselves, is achieving financial freedom by that age. So because you were able to do that, like that's very inspirational for us to see. Like, hey, this is re-manifesting. This is a possibility for us. And I don't know what age did you get started? If you don't mind me asking, I want to ask if you permission first.
I bought my first place when I was 24.
Okay, so yep.
No,
4 years.
23, so it was 5 in total.
Okay, 5 years in total. You were able to go from not knowing anything about real estate to 14 doors, financially free. And I know that we definitely wanted to start diving much more into it. I know, Alex, that's all I had. You can proceed.
Yeah. So as far, we wasn't gonna get into the age, but as far as like, I know you're huge on house hacking and that being like the way to get into real estate and that starting. So how many times did you actually, because I already know, the answer to what you're going to say, but for the listeners, how many times did you house hack and how many times did you do that in terms of like, to build your portfolio up to a certain level? And then I'm sure, you kind of slow down, but.
Yeah. So I house hacked 3 times.
3 times. Okay. So that right there is we talk about house hacking all the time.
Beat the horse, bro. Beat the horse.
Yeah, like we talk about it in terms of like It's the best way to get started in real estate. It's like, I always say it's the single best financial decision you can make probably in your life. If you had to pick like one thing, like that was like all like the only financial decision you could make, I would probably recommend someone, house hack. That's probably one of the best things you'll do, because you're, number one, obviously eliminating that biggest expense. And you're getting, all the wealth generators of real estate just by house hacking as well, right? So you get, they talk about like, I don't know if you heard of Craig Kirlock from Bigger Pockets, but he's like one of the house hacking experts on there. But he talks about a lot like internal rate of return and the net worth return on investment just from house hacking, right? Because you get, number one, like if we look at the ROI equation, you have your benefit over your cost, right? But when you house hack, you get the cash flow, you get the rent savings, you get the loan pay down, you get the appreciation, you get all of that, and then you divide that by your down payment. The returns that you're going to be getting are easily 100% to infinite, or not infinite if you put money in, but you're getting crazy, triple digit returns just by house hacking, right? And so I emphasize this so much because it's so freaking powerful. So can you kind of just talk about like your experiences with house hacking and why you think it's like, one of the best things out there as well?
Totally. I think something that isn't shouted enough from the rooftops is that you need somewhere to live. So let's just start right there. You, regardless if you house hack or not, you're paying for housing. You have to have a house. You have to have somewhere you're staying. Unless you're staying, even if you're, staying in your family's house or staying with a friend, you have to be somewhere. So why not let the somewhere you are make money? Mm-hmm. And I know people from New York and LA with their loud, like no one's talking to you. Everyone else though, like the mortgage is similar to the rent. I promise mm-hmm. It is. Which is why I'm renting to you in the first place. Because the mortgage is cheaper than the rent. It's the business. It's literally why the business was made, is because in most places it's cheaper to own than it is to buy. Oh, but I don't want to have to take care of the, shut up. You paying for it anyway, right? Because you don't want to have to take care of the HVAC, but your rent is doing that regardless. Yep. So even if you don't want to, that's what's happening. Because if it wasn't, I would have to raise the rent to make the business profitable. So when a tenant calls me and that property we just talked about, and it's like the stove is out, I was like, oh, well, I made $800 from your rent this month, so I'll go buy a $100 stove and put it in there. You're already paying for that stove. You're already paying for whatever issue. And if it starts to become more expensive than what you're paying, either your rent will go up or I will sell the property. So anytime you see a rental, I'm making money off of you. And I speak like that because I know I am someone who needs to be shamed into action. And so I find people who also need to be shamed into action. Like, I'm making money off of you. So choose not to. That's cool. So that's number one. For the more sensible people who don't like to be talked to like that, I can say, I think it's the lowest risk investment you're going to have. I don't know whenever else you're going to get a 100% ownership of a property for a 3% down payment. Like, I just don't know. Not a property, 100% ownership of a business with a 3% down payment. I just don't know when that ever is going to happen to you again. So for those people who are like, well, I'm worried about investing in a nail salon or a grocery store or a laundromat, this is a much cheaper way to get involved. And the fact that you can buy a multifamily, which I couldn't afford at that point. But you could really, when I bought my duplex, the first full duplex, one side was completely rented. I'm in one side, renting out the 2 bedrooms, renting out the parking lot. Just make money is what the goal became. And you can really, just like you said, Alex, super maximize your investment in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yep. One thing I always ask people when it comes to buying a house, because I feel like this is one of the most fundamental things that almost everybody's is going to want to experience at some point in their life, is buying a house. I like to ask people, what's the lowest down payment that you can put on a house? Most people don't know it's the problem. They always would be like, oh, maybe it's, 20%. Then they have different fears, like preconceived fears about with buying a house less than 20%. Oh, my over leverage is the property value going to go down. Oh, I have to pay PMI. Oh, this, that, and the other. But in reality, you'd be like you said, even if you calculate all those different line items, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PMI, repairs, all that is built into that one number for rent payment. And I love you putting it in perspective like that, because I say the same thing to everybody. Like, you keep on complaining about all these different line items, and you really, in reality, all it is that you are psychologically, you like to see this one number.
Because you mentioned how people are invested into it, but they just don't know they are, right?
Yeah.
With the rents, right? And I always think of that too in the same way when we just look at like the daily stuff, because a lot of people, you ask them like, why don't you, even we just look at the stock market, something simple, right? Why don't you invest in the stock market or something? It's like, well, I mean, I don't want to invest. I don't like it. I'm not interested. I'm like, what? You're already invested into it. It's just that you're on the wrong side of it, right? Because when you watch Netflix, you're invested into the Netflix. When you're, on your Twitter, you're invested into Twitter stock. You're invested into all of that kind of stuff. You're just on the other side of it. And it's really the same way with renting and owning too. You're invested into that property. You just don't get none of the benefits from it. So that's one thing that I really want people to really think about and resonate to. And so I'm really glad you made that point.
So you said that you now own 2 duplexes and a 10-unit apartment, right? So how did that transition start to look for you? Like saying, okay, I wanted to scale my business to multi-units. Did you go straight there, or did you do some single families in between? How'd that work for you?
No. So I guess the first 2 were single families. So I moved, the first house I bought, I had been working the owners of the other side of that duplex, just like a little bit of complaining about the tenant, because they were out of state owners. I'd be like, oof, these new tenants you got, just trying to wear them down. Just be like, oh, you trying to sell? Well, if you're going to sell, then you might as well just sell to me, because I could do all this for you. So that gave me the first duplex, and then used an FHA loan to get the second duplex. And then from there was some seller financing deals in between, some stuff I've sold since then to pay for the bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
And the little flips, nothing massive, mostly just cosmetic to get 8,000 here, 10,000 there. And that paid for the larger apartment building.
Nice. Just rewinding a little bit. Each of those houses, so the first, they were all obviously owner occupant. Were they all pretty much, did you have a problem going to the bank and they seeing your debt increase, but necessarily, yeah, of course they take into consideration the new income, but for the most part, was there an issue with that in regards to going to the bank and they're actually seeing their,
No, there wasn't for me, but there was such a huge spread between the mortgages and the rents that they I was making more in their eyes, and they were totally okay with that. So when I have a $500 mortgage, but at that point I think the rent was $1,200 or $1,300, there's more than enough spread. She's making double the mortgage, so it's not a threat, or it's not a liability on her income sheet because she's making so much from it.
Do you house hack today?
No.
So
my husband was like, we're done.
Right.
I'm done. I'm over it. I'm done. And so we got a house.
And that's fine though, because you were able to set yourself up for something that you really wanted, as opposed to buying something you couldn't afford 5 years ago. So now you're able to probably live much more how you want to, with tenants already built in. Like you I think you said 3.5, 3, and 5. That in total is 11.5% down on 3 different properties that you own 100%, that you reap 100% of the benefits of. So all of the rent, you're not giving 97% of that back to the mortgage company that gave you the loan. You're keeping 100% of the rent, and then paying off the little piece of a mortgage that you may have, maybe putting some away for expenses. But overall, it sound like you're cash flowing very, very handsomely overall.
Can I tell you, for our dream house, at least for the dream house of the level we can afford right now, we still pay less than our tenants do in our mortgage.
Wow.
So again, when I say I'm not lying to you, when I say my tenants pay more mortgage for 1,000 square foot house compared to my 3,000 square foot house, you're like, all right, keep talking about you don't want a house hack, fine, whatever. If you at that point still okay, but my tenants pay more in housing than I do. And I'm not saying that as we're evil landlords and we're charging too much. I'm saying it's more because you're already in the system. You're already paying for it. So why not make some money?
Exactly.
And once you get to the point where your housing can be your personal housing can be paid for by your tenants, even though you're not being there, because all the cash flow is able to pay for your mortgage, your personal one, that's still, in my opinion, that's another version of a cheap type of house hacking right there. I'm still having my stuff paid for. I just don't have to live with you no more. I can buy my own place and I still have enough. That's a beautiful thing.
Y'all just be over there with y'all rental stuff.
But they are still paying your mortgage down. So that's the beauty of house hacking, and just in essence, because if you did that for 3 years, now your personal residence without anybody living by you. You have no duplex, no renting out bedrooms. You literally are getting your stuff paid for because you chose a house hack for 3 years instead of buying your dream house right out the gate that you couldn't afford.
And I still have a mortgage, and the cash flow was able to cover, right?
Right.
I started buying when I was 23. So even if I wanted to stay in my job, right? If I retired at 65, like the traditional whatever, I'd have all these houses paid free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
So now I get a huge almost raise in life from between 23 and 53 due to nothing of me. Like, just like y'all been paying for it for 30 years. So even if I never bought another piece of property, all that just builds, and that there's going to be more equity. The property is going to be valued at more money. I have something to pass down, which is nice. But I mean, even if you just want to focus on you, I probably 5, 8, those, sorry, I'm just going to try to see if I can come up with the numbers. I probably pay with those first 3 house hacks about $3,000 a month in mortgages. So that it'll just be when this is done. So in 30 years, if I wait that long, if I don't pay them off early, I get a $3,000 monthly raise just for doing what I've been doing.
The thing I love about it too is like, no matter how much you have to put down, it's not even the fact that money is not going nowhere. It's you just, because I know you had talked about investing is not spending, right? And spending is different from investing. So because when you spend money, the money is gone. When you invest money, you're essentially just transferring it into, you know, a different account, really, if we're being honest, right? Because the down payments, whatever, Marlon said that was 11% for those 3 houses. That money, it didn't go. It's not like you spent it on something that's gone now. The money is still there as long as you want it there. So that's just like a perspective and a shift. So it's like, don't even think about that down payment as like, oh my God, I'm going to lose I got to put this 5,000. No, it's pretty much like, it's like when someone, if like, for example, the lady that lent us $115,000 to buy real estate, it's not like she lost that money. She just transferred it to a different account that gives you a better savings or interest rate, if you want to think about it that way. So it's just another perspective that people got to really shift and think about it.
Which is why I tell my house hackers, if they can, right? We're not saying like buy one house hack and then leave your job and then go get the new car or whatever. It's that you were living before you got that money. Because that's also something else that helped me a lot, is that my lifestyle did not change between those properties. As much as my bougie inner person wanted to come out and just live her best life, I couldn't yet because I wasn't where I wanted to be. So all that money, I still don't touch that money. So as much as like in theory, the rental money could retire me, I'm living off other businesses. Like I don't use that money. So it just sits in those accounts. But that also, I know this is a separate topic, but it makes us better landlords, or it makes us better business owners, because we are not so tied to the profit. We don't have to make decisions solely for today's, because I'm like, yo, I need all 500 of these dollars to pay my rent. If that was the case, when homegirl is late, because I've already got phone calls like, yo, I'm gonna have to break up the rent, I would be stuck. And we saw how many businesses were stuck back in March and April when they were like, yo, we've been out of work. I'm like, y'all, I don't know if you saw the meme I posted about Cheesecake Factory on April 1st just being like, nah, bro, we don't got it. It's like, you don't got it. It's been 2 weeks. How you, are we supposed to have 6 months of savings? It's been 2 weeks, bro. And y'all can't pay rent. And they didn't pay rent anywhere. Yeah. So at every location across the U.S., they said, we don't have it.
Right.
And if you ran your regular business like that, you'd be out too. If you were like, yo, we're living on this like razor in margin, anytime a toilet, that's how you become a slumlord, right? If you didn't want to be like emotionally, anytime a toilet breaks, you're like, yo, do I replace her toilet? It's like, yes, you replace her toilet. But if you've already spent that money, then you can't.
Right.
So by having a bigger profit margin, by not spending the money immediately, you can save up some reserves maybe if you need to. You just learn a little bit more about your property, but it just makes you so much better and less stressed. Like if people don't pay, it's like, all right, well, I want you to, but we're good for a few months. Like we're straight. We'll figure it out.
Hey, chill. My tenant's on the other side. I don't want them to hear that.
No, that's really that plays back on like the type of discipline that you built for yourself in order to get these properties. Like you were already in a disciplined mindset of saving your money and not having to spend everything that you make. So even if your income increases because you're getting paid more in rent, doesn't mean that you have to start spending that as a result as well. Mm-hmm. Now you're able to, well, I think you also are forward thinking though, because you're thinking times are not always going to be beautiful with sunshine and rainbows. There will be a time where I don't have a tenant for maybe 5 months straight. There'll be a time where I have a tenant living in there that's not paying and I maybe have to evict. Like, I'm sorry to say, stuff does happen in real estate that's not always so glamorous.
5 months.
Okay, let's take it back to 2 months then. Either way, every rental's not always going to be rented out. Every unit's not always going to be having somebody in there paying full price and rent. So for those times of crisis times like we are in right now, you're able to still survive and even thrive. Like, it's not even phasing you the way it's phasing other businesses who are having to go into or had to go into bankruptcy because they were spending everything that they were making from their profit.
And I think that brings on that's you really hit a good point when you talked about you live off your other businesses, and that just goes back to the importance of multiple streams of income. Because at the end of the day, we can say like, hey, don't have only a W-2 job, but it applies the same way. Like if your only income is rental income, you're still relying on one stream of income. It don't matter. And at the end of the day, a business owner with one business is still one stream of income. If that business dries up, I mean, look at the Cheesecake Factory, like you said. If the business dries up, what's going to happen? They ain't had no other streams of income that they could pay the rent with. So, it's just you got to be thinking like that. And that's why we're big on multiple streams of income, because one is too close to none. So,
yes.
So I want to talk about these, the other properties that you own and all that kind of stuff and what you're doing now as far as like what you're trying to do moving forward. So you say that you own a building, a 10-unit building. So yep. How is that as far as like purchasing that and like getting financing for that? I know we kind of had glazed over, but can we get into more so that, because I don't think we've talked about commercial real estate investing on the podcast, because I mean, we haven't really had anyone that's been doing it, I think. So it's a really good opportunity to talk about that. So can you, talk about how you got into that and, how that looks for you now?
Yeah. So the only reason I looked at commercial because my husband told me I couldn't house hack anymore. So I was like, well, I guess commercial is the next way. And it feels silly to spend money commercially on a single family because you can only have so many mortgages. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get a mortgage, let it be a bigger building. So again, I kind of went out with my little budget thinking I could find something, and nothing came up for months and months and months. My budget was $200,000. I wanted something bigger than 4 units, and I was hoping I could find, and there was nothing. And at that point, even single families in my area became like 190, 200. Like we just had this huge boom. So I had to look outside my market, and I found a property on Craigslist. Yes, for sale by owners. I found a property on Craigslist for a dude who he had a 10-unit, and there was a 12-unit behind him, or 2 12 units behind him. And he said the other owner wanted to go in, so if somebody wanted to buy the whole package, they could. So he was selling his for 180, and I think the other two, 180, 200, 220. And that's when I went to see them. I was like, they're cute little studios. They don't make very much, but they're not an expensive loan, so it was okay. And really, I wanted the experience. I was telling my dad, I think at that point, of just like, even if it crashes and burns, I'm not out that much money. But I have to learn how to do this because if I can't manage a 10-unit, I can't manage a 40. And I know they're out there, but I can't take on a 40-unit right now. Like, I don't even know what it takes to manage building with lots of different people. So that's when I went to the bank to get a commercial loan, and they said, you don't have enough reserves. You have great cash flow, but you don't have the reserves we want. They wanted like a year reserves per property. I was like, who does that? No one has a year reserve for each property. But they wanted that. They wanted, I need to have my LLC, which like you have to have an LLC to own a commercial property. And there was something else I needed. And so I went back for a few months, and I hoped it would still be there. And that's all I could do was hope that it was still, and it was, because it was a for sale by owner. So it was still there. And I went back. I offered him the 180 he wanted, knowing full well that I was going to lower it during inspections because I just need to know what was wrong. Once we inspected it, the roof was really shoddy, and the apartments were actually pretty solidly built, but the roof, and I'm like, I don't want to get stuck in 3 years with a $30,000 roof or a $20,000 roof. So we renegotiated. I paid $160, and they put aside $25,000 for the roof. So I got, with that $160, it came with the building with a brand new roof, brand new gutters, brand new vents, fit hood, like all that came included. And yeah, So I closed on that last June 2019. And I was under contract in May or April for the 12 unit behind it, but then COVID. So we have to like restructure. But I still got my eye on the prize. That's the building I want before the year's up. So I got to get a little more money in my pocket because I don't have a job anymore, according to the bank. So I have to get a little more in my pocket. But once I get that 12 unit is mine.
Two things that I love about that is the fact that you kind of, you're forcing yourself to, number one, grow, right? Because it's very easy to just continue to whatever, not even if we're not looking at house hacking, just to continue doing single family. And it's not bad if that's what you want to do, single family, whatever. There's people that have 100 houses in single family. I personally wouldn't do that, but if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. But it forces you by, okay, if I want to own that 40 unit, I got to know how to do the 10 unit. And so if I can't learn how to manage, because the thing is, when you're getting into commercial real estate, it's like you're not buying a house anymore. You're buying businesses because they're even evaluated based off of the income. They don't even evaluate them like normal residential houses. They evaluate it like a business. If you were going to go sell a business, they're going to say, what does it generate? So it's the same way when they're looking at commercial real estate. So by you knowing, okay, if I want to get into the big time real estate, I got to know what's the ins and outs of, this stuff. And so you force yourself to kind of, learn it in that way. And then whenever you mentioned about the fact that you're trying to get the 12 unit and you're, the goal is now I just got to build capital. And that's kind of similar to what we're doing too right now. We're flipping houses so that we can buy our first apartment, hopefully next year. But it's really textbook. So I really commend you on that. And I love that.
Yeah.
Yep. One thing I heard from your story was that you're always looking for like a way to at least learn the game before you try to go really big. So just like when you start a house hacking, I always say it's like a landlording on training wheels. It's like, okay, this is a good way for me to, I'm living in this place, but I get to see what the tenant life is like, what it's like collecting rent, what it's like making repairs, what it's like taking a request from a tenant. You see all those things firsthand because you're living with them. Now you can go rent out a single family or a duplex without living there, and you are very familiar with the process already, so you don't have to physically be there to do it. If you want to get that 40 unit, you say, okay, let me try a 10 unit. I'll actually learn the process, and I'll learn what it's like to run the actual business before I start scaling. And that's just what's become comfortable for you. One thing I was wondering though, because like Alex said, some people do all single family route. Is there any reasons behind why you chose the multifamily route? Was that like the passivity of it, the business of it, the I don't know if you expound on that, like why you chose multifamily?
Yeah. So in my area, a big part of it was just the money. Like I just could make my duplex costs more than the apartment building I own. I think the second single family was close. Right. So if I'm going to make that second single family, I think I paid $140 and in the apartment building cost $160. So I can make $1,400 or I can make $4,000 for the same price. And that's very different. And I know they don't all line up that easy. Usually when you go bigger, they're a lot more expensive, but I went to a new market and tried something different. And it's about a 2-hour drive from where I currently live. So I had to be uncomfortable too of like, so on the days you go, like I go on Mondays, when you go, it's going to be a 4-hour drive. That's part of what it costs until the building. Now I don't go every week, but when I first got it last June, it was like, that's a commitment you have to make now because you need to learn how the building works. I've never had a building this big. So like, there's not a water, like everyone doesn't have a main drain. You have to figure out where that is. This on a septic tank. I didn't know you had to pump septic. What was that? So by the time he came, he was like, girl, I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Like I don't spray with my single families. I don't do pest inspection. I don't pay for exterminators. You live in your own apartment, like your own townhouse. That's your job. But with buildings, you have to pay for stuff like that. So learning those little pieces because it paid me more. So that was number one. And the scalability was just easier because now I could have 10 single families, but now I just have one handyman because they're all in the same strip. And when I get that 12 unit, I have 22 units that can all use the same handyman. So I only have one handyman, one plumber, one lawyer, one property manager, compared to if I had 10 all over the state. I would have to have different plumbers. I would have to have different property managers potentially. I could probably have the same lawyer, but it just doesn't scale well.
Yeah. Right.
And couldn't buy in my city anymore.
And I think that's like the essence of economy of scale, just in terms of like, you know, being able to having everything under one roof. It's like, of course, or not one roof in that case, but just in general, whenever you buy a building, it's like, you know, they share the same walls. You know, you don't need that one handyman. You only need one person to take care of that entire building, as opposed to those single family houses. So that's economy of scale is one big reason why I love, you know, the at least commercial real estate aspect of buying apartments. So that's a really good thing. So one thing you did mention though is, as far as like from last year to now, you're not even having to go there as much. And to me, that speaks to you've like implemented systems and you started, you know, automating things. So can you talk more so about the importance of like, or what it kind of looks like in terms of just even on a smaller scale, right? Not even when we're talking commercial, just like if someone's house hacking, right? Because that's something we need to, you have to start implementing early, those systems in place because at the end of the day, you don't want to buy a job. That's the worst thing you can do, is to buy yourself another job. So what systems have you implemented in order to make your business more passive in real estate?
Absolutely. So, great question. Some big things. So rent collection, right? That like rent notices go out on a certain day. This is what they look like. If you're going to mail it in, here is the pre-stamped, pre-addressed envelope that's already in it. Just like you got a Comcast bill or a water bill from the city. Like it looks like every bill the same way. Everyone, because all my properties are in Virginia, everyone's on the same eviction schedule, right? So like, hey, rent's due on the 1st, 2nd day you get your notice, 7th day we're filing for eviction. Like that's what it is. Unless you get in contact, that's what we do. I don't pick up the phone when tenants call. Send me a text or leave me a voicemail, because I don't want to talk to you, because you just going to tell me about so many things that I don't need. I don't need it. Just let me know the issue and I will get it fixed. Emergencies are solved within 48 hours if we can, but non-emergencies get solved once a week. So when I go down for my weekly checkups of everything, that's when we'll do non-emergencies. So if a light bulb's out, if there's a small leak under the sink, like, hey, put a bucket under there, we'll fix it in 2 days. But we're not going to keep calling people out every time a little thing happens. What else? Oh, call the police. Like, call them. Don't call me. If there's an issue, someone's breaking in, I can't help. What am I supposed to do? Like, what? I just, like, and this is a really big thing of like, I'm not going to be a mediator between you guys. I was an RA in college and I got enough. I'm done, because adults are just terrible. So I don't want to sit down. Well, her dog did. If it's an issue, call police. If it's not, figure it out. You're an adult. But that has saved my phone, and saved me from getting lots of phone, because I also run Airbnbs and they need support because they can leave me reviews. So they need me my support more so than my tenants might. And I just need you to learn to solve some of these issues by yourself.
Yeah. So you've been training them.
I was about to say, I had that exact thing written down. So.
Yeah.
One thing I've looked back on when I was a tenant, and I just shamed my own self for certain things I even requested. There was one time that the light bulb went out, and there was another time where I didn't have a towel holder. I'm like, and I'm over here keep on putting in a request. Where's my towel holder? I need my towel. Like, bro, shut up. That's like a $15 item, bro. Go get it. Install this stuff. Yes. Like, you said in the dark. But that's 18-year-old me versus 24-year-old me. You just learn so much over this time, especially coming from the landlord perspective. You see how petty certain little things are. It's like, why are you asking me for that? Like, okay, are you not an adult, for one? Like, I guess you still own your mom.
I think some of it as well is, I know some people can be petty and some of the issues can be petty, but it also helps you be better too. So in my move-in basket, I mean, all your lights work. But I don't take care of your lights, but here's a 6-pack anyway, right? Because that's going to cost me $3. And I know these lights all work, and these lights should work for at least 2 or 3 years. So here's just a 6-pack of lights for you to put in your house at some point. Because I know it's petty. Or when we do our maintenance checks, so I'll do once a season, I'll go in with my handyman, we go into each unit and we just like check water and things, just to make sure everything's working. That's when I'll be like, hey, I see the towel holder's loose. Let's fix this up right here. I fixed it a month ago. If it's still broken, you have to deal with it before. But you can use that to get better too. But yeah, no, if that you'd be sitting in the dark, no towel, towel musty, just figure it out.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about it, though. It's
what's-
about training your tenants. Though, like you want to be able to train these people to be adults for one, and then not to rely, not to be dependent on you. Because at the end of the day, like you said, like we said earlier, you don't want to buy yourself another job. This is supposed to be a passive investment, something that you are able to generate income from to live the life that you want to live, not something that you have to be intertwined into 24/7 in order for it to operate. And that's the essence of why we like building businesses. Why I appreciate that you are going into the multifamily route, which is a business in itself, because that allows you to step away from being a self-employed to a business owner, somebody who's able to have a system in place to operate their business, not necessarily them being the person that is the sole focus of the business and the sole reason why the business is still up and running.
That's exactly.
I got one more thing I want to comment on. So I know there was a video that was going around last week. It was about the guy who had the tenant. Yes, you already know what I'm talking about. Had the tenant that destroyed all of his stuff in his rental. I know Alex had sent it to me, and did I send it? I think I sent it to Alex because I saw when I was scrolling through Twitter. I'm like, wow, that's rough. And I saw that you commented on it on your Instagram story, because I know how people are. People love finding any reason whatsoever to justify how they feel. And if they are opposed to something, they're like, I got it. Now look, this is why they want. This is why I told you. This is why they want to be investing, because this stuff like this happens. But I love the point that you want to. I love the points that you made. So I want you to share that with our audience too, because
Can you tell them what the video was?
Yeah,
they don't. People don't know what was happening. Can you tell them what happened?
Yeah, so in the video, homie clearly beautifully renovated a rental unit. I'm talking floors, brand new energy efficient windows, new appliances, great, much better than any of my stuff. Like very, very nice apartment. And then he rented it to a woman, I'm assuming with like a few kids, couple kids, 2-3 kids, who was struggling to find rent. Like her story at least and this is, I'm getting it through him, was that nobody would rent to her. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, look, I'm a landlord, this is a business, but I want to help you out. You could live here. She didn't pay her rent. I'm assuming maybe she didn't pay for August-ish. I'm trying to put some dates. And he came and essentially said like, so you're going to have to go. He didn't file an eviction. We can't file evictions right now. And she was not pleased. And she destroyed his place. And sometimes we like casually say destroyed. We're like, oh, because she didn't like sweep. But no, like she like really destroyed it. And in ways, I don't even know if she knew how bad it was what she did. For instance, she threw paint on his new floors, which you can't buff it out because it wasn't hardwood. So those floors have to be like replaced because that paint is dried. And you can't scrape it because then you'll scrape the floors. She ripped the windows. She broke the windows, but then ripped them out. So all that casing has been ripped out, which means the siding on the outside of the house would have to be fixed too. She busted the like washer and dryer glass doors. She ripped the lights down. She like wrote on the wall. She like left nothing usable. And it was devastating. It was really, really hard to see such beautiful work just get destroyed so quickly. And a lot of people tagged me in that video and I was like, what would you do? Oh my God, insurance. And then a lot of people on the other side was like, he should have known better and this, that, and the third. And he got whatever. And I was like, so both of y'all need to stop because like we could all know better. I just had a tenant infested with roaches. I didn't know she was roach lady. I didn't know there was going to be roaches in the apartment. And somebody could see that and be like, you should have known that because she owed what? What should I have known? There's no like screening, like, can you live with roaches? Is that a problem for you? Or do you have standards? But the people saying why they shouldn't, or I could never, it's like, number one, this doesn't happen to everybody. And it wasn't his fault that it happened. But if you're not putting the same energy to like, yo, you shouldn't be a doctor because you know sometimes people die. And you're right. Like, have you ever said that? You shouldn't be an engineer because you know sometimes people don't be following your instructions. And it's like, with that, what? You shouldn't be a politician because you know sometimes people don't listen. And you just like, you would never say that with this other stuff. This energy you're putting is so backwards to justify like your desire, like your inaction to execute, like your inactions in general in terms of this. And so I don't want to hear it. If you write to me like, yo, what could I learn? Like, could I do better? Would insurance cover this? I just want to be prepared. I can teach you those things. But if you're using it, all those people who are using it as a reason to justify why they shouldn't, like, good, because you weren't going to anyway. Let's just like, just let it go. Because you weren't going to if you're letting these things scare you, because it happens to so few of us.
Mm-hmm. That is why that's all I want to hear, because you summed it all up perfectly at the end. It's like people are looking for a reason to continuously live the way they are, because they feel like, for one, they may have some type of inferiority that they feel when they see you doing something better. Like, oh, nah, bro, it's something bad with it. Like, I've heard bad stories about it, so I was just waiting for the time where it happens to you. And so now that they have something to point to, now they want to point to that. Be like, see, I told you. Instead, be like, no. Well, it happens. It will happen, but like you said, it happens in every business. If you're looking for something bad, you're going to find something bad eventually. Like nothing is perfectly flawless, but that doesn't mean that you should still take no action and continuously live the mediocre life that you are.
And you'd be like, it's bad. Well, don't forget, your rent is still doing the first, baby. So if you want to be upset, just make sure you still send that rent. Be upset in that rented apartment, because if that's how you feel, so be it. But
that was everything for me. I guess the final question, though, is what's the end goal for Deandra McDonald?
Count your pockets a little bit. Do you mind?
What is the end goal? I can give you, I don't know if I have an end goal. I have like a 5-year goal.
Well, what are those?
So, okay. And this came from, I want to give you a little background because time's not real. I used to teach, right? And I taught in this class called AVID. And AVID is like a gateway for underserved children who want to go to college, but like our first generation college students, maybe minority students, low income households, stuff like that. And I said, one day I was like, I just want you to dream. Like, if you could find your dream house on Trulia, what would it look like? And they were pulling up like 2-bedroom. And I was like, but that was all they had been exposed to, right? Because parents didn't go to college, so there's maybe not a lot of money in the house. So you know what you know. And by the end of that, they were in there like, is that granite and not marble? And I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want you to feel like you can have whatever you want, right? If you don't like the layout, whatever, like you have to work for it, but I want you to dream. And so they made me do the same thing. And I found a house in Atlanta that I was like, oh, this is my house. This is my house. And it is a mansion. And when you look at a mortgage, you're like, so $40,000 a month, huh? Okay, yeah. Okay. But in 5 years, 'cause my husband just started his PhD, so we'll be here for another 4 years. And in 5 years, I just want to feel like money is not an issue at all. Like the fact that he was able to even go back, like he went on scholarship and stuff, but that money was never part of the discussion. It was like, yo, does this work for our life? Can kids factor into this? Like, how would this work with aging parents? Like, those were the questions we were having, but it was never about money. And as my parents get older, as I maybe think about having kids, I just want to be in a spot where money is not an issue. And that number I've landed on is like $100,000 a month is kind of what I would like to make through all the businesses. Yeah. And I am not at even 20% of that. So let's just put that out there right now. It's not even like, oh, well, I'm making 75. So like, I'll just figure it out. But that push is like, think big, even to the kids, right? Think bigger than what you want. Because you can get there, but even going back to what you said, how did you know it was time to do something else? Because single families weren't going to get me to $100,000 a month. They weren't, without me having 1,000 properties and essentially getting another job. But because my goal is like $100,000 a month, it has to be like, well, it has to be 100 units, and I can't do 100 units now, but I'll do the 10 in the meantime of that. So yeah, that's my long-term, or like, I guess like 5-year goal starting last year was $100,000 a month. It's possible. And we know it because of exposure, because of stuff you guys do. Like, it's out there and it's scary, but if I don't, then it's like, what's the point? If you're like, can you imagine? You guys, I was your age when I bought my first place. So imagine if you guys were just comfortable. You're like, okay, so at 24, I'm done. Like, wow, what a life. That's it. We've reached the heights of what we got. Just 50 more years of fake plants in my background. If that's what you want. We'll be here in 70 years. It will be. And like, I'm forward thinking, but I know y'all want more than this too.
Man, I love this answer.
Yeah.
I love it because
this is the best one.
Number one, you're giving yourself a why, right? So like you're not just like aimlessly doing things. Like there's a physical manifestation thing out there that's like, this is what I want. Like even in terms of the house too, because I'm big on that. Like for my, I saw a house earlier this year in January of this guy I follow on Instagram, a realtor in Dallas, and he did a tour, and I screen recorded the video. I saved it in my phone, and I watch it every morning because I said that's the house I'm gonna buy when I, whatever age. And then when I was 24, I was 24. I mean, sorry, when I turned 24, got it postered and I put it on my wall and I framed it, and I literally look at it every morning, and it's like that's the house. I mean, it's like, bro, of course, it's a mansion in Dallas. And that's the house that I want. But the thing about it is like, it's like, you can feel it. It's so like, because it's like a physical thing that's like there. And even with the house or the $100,000 thing, it's like something that's like, I don't know. I think about like waking up and like seeing deposits in my bank account in the amount that's like, oh yeah, I covered my mortgage today. Right. And like, you can physically like manifest and see those things. It makes it a lot easier to like work towards those like goals. So I love that answer because it's like you're not just doing it just to do it. Mm-hmm.
Same here. Like I was literally trying to avoid shouting while you were saying your whole answer, because everything that you were saying is stuff that I've preached so often. It's about dreaming big. So for your students, you were telling them what's your dream house, and unfortunately, they were only dreaming in the realms of what they had already seen growing up. And instead of just thinking I can go beyond this to something that's may seem unimaginable, but everything is obtainable if I believe that I can achieve it. And so if you are thinking on a scale of mansion in Dallas, $40,000 mortgage because that's the dream house that I want, if you can think in those realms, you can then you can backtrack. I always say reverse engineer and say, how do I get there? Like now you start building a plan. You pretty much open your mind and said, I'm not where I currently want to be, but if I build a roadmap or if I build a bridge to get there, eventually I will obtain it. It may take steps. It's not going to be an instant one step I'm there, but if I like I said, lay out that plan, and eventually I will be there. And you're not right now. You're in the midst of doing the necessary steps to get where you want to be. So that's perfect. That's why I always preach dream big, because once you do that, you can then open up your mind to possibilities that you otherwise didn't think you were obtainable.
Oh,
yeah,
so
I
good.
love that. So then,
what are y'all's in goals?
Well,
the next commercial.
Well, yeah, just for me, I mean, I always said I wanted to, number one, when we started this, when we was 22, I said I wanted to be financially free by age 28. And that was just replacing, the job income, right? But then, getting exposed to once we started the podcast, we got exposed to so many different avenues to like of wealth creation. Because before it was just like real estate, and that was like all I was focused on. But it's like it's not to say like that's not what people should do. But for me, I was like, okay, I'm big on multiple streams of income. So if I can have, this business doing this and this business doing this, that's what I want. So I always say that I need to get $50,000 in passive income now by the time I'm 28. That's the goal. Or per month. I don't want that, that's what I'm thinking of right now. So
I would say for myself, so one thing I always wanted ever since I was probably in junior high was a Chevy Corvette. And that was always one thing that had fueled me, because I'm like, literally, if you ask anybody who's driven with me, every single time I see a Corvette, I act a fool. I should be like, hey, I'll see you. Like, I just get so excited because I always envision myself in it one day. I'm like, that will be me. So that was always one thing that kept me motivated to say, okay, I'm working toward a goal. And I always tell people to develop a why, like something that they want, like their end goal. What do you want? Because that's what's going to keep fueling you in your worst days, like the days where you don't feel like working. That's going to fuel you to continue to keep pressing forward to achieve that goal that you set forth in the beginning. And so I would say I think my goal is always evolving though, like in regards to like the number piece, because as you get exposed to more things, like to more people like Deandra McDonald or other people that we've interviewed, we're seeing that there's more possibilities than what we first thought. Like when I was talking about with real estate, like for me, it was the same thing. Just replace the 9-to-5 income with passive income. And that was going to be through real estate. But now it's just evolving. Like the income potential, I feel like, is limitless in a sense. Like there's no end to how much you can obtain. It's really just about how much will it take for you to live the lifestyle that you want to live.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I've shaped it up. And so once I've identified, like I think it's very good that both of y'all have the dream house identified. I've seen the Corvette, and that was already enough for me. But if I identify my dream house, that would be the concrete number that I set to be like, okay, that much in passive income to cover the mortgage. I need passive income to cover the Corvette. I need passive income to cover all the travel that I want to do moving forward, because I tell about my travel my travel plans all the time as well. I see you look interested, so
I want like my passport to be full. Just where we going? I want to go somewhere for a month. We're gonna figure it out. I just want to go.
There you go, right there. It's like I always ask people, how long do you think a vacation should last? Most people say anywhere between 5 to 7 days. I'm saying no. I want my vacation to last for 30 days at minimum, and that's the time. And I don't have to go to one place and come right back. I can go to one place, go after 7 days, go to another place, and after 7 days, go to somewhere else. I don't have to stay and do the traditional go there, come back, and work my 9 to 5. That's the wavelength I'm thinking of. So I need passive income to cover that too. And so whatever that number is for me, that's where I will end up at. But I think it's always evolving. So I haven't set a concrete number for it, but that's something that's also in the plans.
Yeah. So man, that was we want to close it out with the Fast Five. This is pretty much where we will, get into, or we're going to ask you 5 questions. I think we should make it less time, because I think what we do, we give them 60 seconds, but that's too much time to answer each question. So we're going to give you 25 seconds to answer each question. The questions aren't tough, but 60 seconds is
it's been too easy in the past, so he wants to make it a little more challenging.
We gotta put some pressure on you. So I'm gonna take the first one, and Marlon take the next one. We alternate. So first question: we'll give you 30 seconds. First question:
There you go.
Thanks.
What is so generous? All right.
First question: what does success mean to you?
Success means that I'm able to do whatever I want.
Look at that, 3 seconds. Question number
30 seconds per question?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was like,
No.
I thought I had to answer 5 questions, 30 seconds. My bad. Oh, okay. If I can elaborate.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me.
She said, "Oh, now I can talk." There we go.
You
got 5 seconds.
Okay.
I'm playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll elaborate slightly, but I think in my world, success means that money is not ever a part of why I can't do something. If it's for moral reasons, religious reasons, or if it's for ethical reasons or whatever, it's never going to be money. So I want to make sure that me, the generation above me, the generation after me, never have to use money as a basis for their decisions.
That's perfect. All right. So question number 2, what's your favorite money or business book?
And why?
Oh, my favorite.
Oh, there's like a bookshelf over there. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm looking at my bookshelf. My favorite money. Okay, The 4-Hour Work Week, I would say, is my favorite money book.
Sure.
And I think it's because it really drastically shifted how I thought a business should be run. It wasn't the exposure to how businesses are. It was like, no, you could make anything a work from anywhere 2-hour-a-week business if you set the right people to do what they should. And I really love that mentality.
I love it.
No doubt.
Okay, third question. Would you rather have $1,000 a week for life or $1 million today, and why?
$1,000 a week for life or $1 million today? I think I would go with the $1 million today. And that's because I know I can make more than $50,000 a year with that money.
So you did the math in your head.
Right.
And I guess on a more like realistic level, I think it's kind of silly to think that I'd be alive forever. You know, like for 52, what is that? I know I only have 30 seconds. I think I can do it fast enough. 52 divided by 1 million would be 20 years. And not that I'm gonna die in the next 20 years, but like how ridiculous for me to be like, of course I would be living. I will make it. No, somebody else can use that money right away.
Thanks. I agree.
All right. Question number 4. If you can go back and change anything about your journey, what would it be?
I don't want to have to be broke. I know, but I know being broke was a part of the story, right? Tyler Perry just became a billionaire, and they were like, he sleeps in cars. And I was like, I don't want to sleep in cars. I just want to be rich.
I just want the money. I don't want to have to go through all the heartache to get there.
His dad just slept in the car. Steve Harvey didn't have no house. Like, can't we just be middle class and then wealthy? Why do we have to? I'm just so poor. So, I would, if I could still have all the lessons learned, I would like to have not been poor right out of college. That would have been my ideal situation.
Yeah, facts. No, that's good. Okay, last question then. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can follow me on all things social at Deandra McDonald. You can also go to DeandraMcDonald.com and learn more about classes and ebooks and me. There's free trainings and free worksheets, so like go and do all your stuff. But mostly, probably the most active on Instagram, and maybe a YouTube to follow. Who knows?
Hey.
Who knows?
No, people, y'all gotta go follow her. She's her content is A1. Like I know you spend I can definitely tell you put effort and time and thought into everything that you put out and anything you attach to your brand. Because it's definitely, you're doing it the right way. So I know you're going to blow up, get huge soon. So hopefully we could send some of our listeners over to you. And, this was amazing. I really enjoyed this conversation. This was probably just the funnest conversation we've had, just in terms of like, just getting into everything, but still, making it, fun. Finance and money ain't got to be boring. And I think you're the epitome of that. So we definitely enjoy your story, and we look forward to seeing what you do next, and hopefully we can have you back on the show sometime.
Love to. And I'm glad we're finally using Zoom now, no Skype.
On the slugs. I feel that.
For real. No, for sure. But that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. And if you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at the Monopolizers, or on Instagram at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged, so be sure to check that out and share those posts. But until then, we out.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.